my darlings, I'm Sophie Darling, and welcome to my first reaction to episode 18 of Death Note. In the last episode, we saw that Light, Elle, and Misa are all going to be spending a lot more time together, which I think is going to create this really interesting dynamic where they begin to see each other more as friends than adversaries. In my last episode, a few people didn't quite agree with what I was saying about how the Death Note corrupts Light. And I just want to clarify a little bit further. I'm not saying that the Death Note has given him these personality traits. These personality traits were always pre-existing in Light. But what we are seeing is a Light where he doesn't have the power to act on his ego, his God complex, and his greed. We are now seeing what Light could have potentially been if those qualities were kind of suppressed, pushed below the surface. Whereas when he's given the Death Note allows him to enact the darker aspects of his personality. I'm not saying that those traits weren't always there. Of course they were. The Death Note has just allowed them to become more dominant, to be more amplified than what they would have been if he didn't have the power and control that he does have now. So I wanted to clarify a little bit, just because I know that maybe the way I phrased it could have been a bit confusing. People could have misinterpreted it as me saying that Light has always been good and that the Death Note corrupted him and made him evil. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Light never was in a position of power beforehand, which meant that the darker aspects of his personality could be more hidden and the more moralistic parts of his personality come to fruition. Whereas when he's given the Death Note, he has that power to enact. But prior to receiving the Death Note, we see a more moralistic Light, a Light that could have been. Whereas when he receives the Death Note, it gives him more confidence. It allows him power to enact his darker fantasies. And that's why we see the darker parts of his personality become more dominant. Whereas the Light we're seeing now, the darker parts of his personality are more suppressed because he doesn't have the power to enact what he truly desires. If that makes sense at all. I can clarify it further, but that's basically what I was trying to say. Those parts of his personality have always pre-existed. He just never had the means to enact it. But yeah, without further ado, we're going to get into episode 18. We're going to see how this character dynamic plays out. And it's just going to be very fun to watch. I think we're almost going to be given a few kind of cutesy episodes of them bonding, of their dynamic, to the point that we almost forget what the true inevitable goal is, which is to kill Elle. So this is the new complex. Oh, it's very high tech. No expense spared.
Huh? Okay, maybe the belt. Fine. How's this, huh? Good morning.
What's wrong? Did you get hurt?
Oh, this? Kind of. I had a little fight with my wife, and it's just that my daughter's still young, and I'm hardly ever at home as it is, so...
Oh, damn.
Yes, it's probably best if you sleep at home.
Oh, they're on a date. Last we checked, all of them were up in Misa's room.
Oh, God.
Surveillance cameras, huh? Well, since we know Misa has some connection to the second Kira, I guess it does make sense.
This has got to be the lamest date I've ever been on.
No, please, just pretend I'm not even here, okay? By
He's
the
still got the
way,
handcuffs
are you
on.
gonna eat that piece of cake?
Cake makes you fat. I'm not gonna eat any.
Actually, I found that you don't gain any weight as long as you burn calories by using your brain.
So now you're calling me stupid? Fine then. I'll give you the piece of cake as long as you agree to leave me and Light alone.
Even if I leave you two alone, I'm still gonna be watching on surveillance cameras.
Misa is so insufferable sometimes.
Could you stop it with your creepy hobby?
You can call me whatever you like. Last chance for cake.
I thought moving here was supposed to help us catch Kira, but since we've been here, you don't seem all that motivated to me.
Not motivated.
Because he still thinks you're Kira. That's why.
Actually, I'm depressed. Truthfully, all this time I thought that you were Kira, and my entire case hinged on that fact. I guess I just can't get past the fact that my deduction was wrong. If what I'm thinking is correct, when your confinement began, you were Kira. I don't believe it's coincidence that as soon as you were imprisoned, all the killing was stopped. Until
Oh,
then, everything pointed to you being Kira.
he's starting to make the
But after 2
connections
weeks, criminals
without
actually
understanding
began
the
dying again.
supernatural aspect of like how the Death Note works.
Based on that evidence, I can only conclude that Kira's power passes between people.
I just want to correct what I said slightly. He does understand the supernatural aspects of the Death Note, primarily because like he is grasping onto the fact that the power can be relinquished, that memories can be forgotten. He just seems to think that it's being done by an outward force rather than by Light himself and by Misa herself, by them both choosing to give up the Death Note and give up their knowledge. So that's really interesting that his mind has already begun to make those deductions, even though he's slightly off base. But I don't know if he's off base to try and get Light to let his guard down further, or if he's genuinely beginning to doubt himself. But it wouldn't shock me if he is beginning to doubt himself, because it's such like an unusual situation to be thrust into, especially considering the supernatural aspects that he can't possibly fully understand.
But at this point, we have no way of knowing if that's the case. Cheer up, would you?
Cheer up? No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Is he gonna
It's
try
probably
and
better
cheer
if
him
I
up
just stop
because he's
trying so
depressed?
hard. By chasing Kira so desperately, we're just putting our lives at risk for nothing. Yes, it's just a waste of time.
Ryuzaki.
Huh?
Jesus Christ, that was extreme.
That's enough. You don't feel like doing anything. Just because your genius deduction was wrong and I'm not Kira?
Fine, perhaps I phrased that the wrong way. I meant it would be pointless for us to make a move, so we shouldn't even bother.
If we don't chase Kira, he'll never be caught. Is that what you want? If you were just gonna give up, then why did you involve all those innocent people? And more importantly, what was the point of putting Misa and me behind bars?
I understand. But still, whatever the reason...
Jesus
a knife
fucking
hand, my
Christ.
friend.
You idiots.
It's not my deduction that was wrong. The fact is, I can say that Light Yagami is Kira, and Misa Amane is the second Kira, but it won't be enough to solve the case, and that's why I'm a little depressed. Is that so unreasonable?
Yes. Yes, it is. Besides, you should hear yourself. It's as if you won't be satisfied unless I am Kira.
I won't be satisfied unless you're Kira. Well, there may be some truth to that. In fact, now that you mention it, you're right. I think I wanted you to be Kira. As I said before, an eye for an eye. I'm a lot stronger than I look, you know.
We've got to call the room and stop them! Misa Misa is #1 in 18 Magazine's reader popularity poll!
Oh, I see.
Why is that good
Get
news?
this, she's gonna get a lead role in Nishinaka's next movie!
What was that?
I'm trying to distract them, I guess.
Well, that is his specialty.
I can hear you, you know.
Oh, bless. He was just trying to help, but I mean, well, neither of them really care about Misa and what
Miyazaki, I know you're not feeling up to it.
what
but come
role
over here
she's
for a
gonna get.
second. Take a close look at this. All of them were prominent Japanese businessmen, CEOs whose companies are leaders in their respective industries. In just over a month, they all died of heart attacks.
Oh,
As
yes.
expected, there's been a general downturn in the market, with the exception
Rem's
of Yotsuba.
little
In
deal.
other words, their deaths have worked in Yotsuba's favor. Based on this, I can only conclude that Kira is supporting Yotsuba.
It could be. But if what you're saying is true, we can assume that punishing criminals is not this Kira's real intent.
Right. Punishing criminals is a diversion for him. It obscures the fact that he's actually killing people for the benefit of his company. Are you Feeling a bit more motivated now?
The borrower of the Death Note will not be followed by a God of Death. The God of Death always remains with the owner of the Death Note. Also, the borrower cannot trade the eyesight of the God of Death. Okay. When the owner of Death Note dies while the note is being lent, its ownership will be transferred to the person who is holding it at the time.
Our stock continues to increase, but we've kept it below the radar.
Indeed.
Or so you
Everything appears to be
think.
proceeding according to plan.
Quite frankly, if someone was able to trace the deaths of these people back to us, then he'd have to be a god. Besides, we've taken precautions.
That's so ironic because Light has figured this out. And Light is technically a God of Death at this point.
We just spoke with the director, and it seems Kira
It's
has
my
offered
cat.
bribes to a number of politicians.
Hello.
Kira made an offer. As long as the NPA agrees not to pursue him anymore, he won't lay a hand on any politicians.
So that's that. The police caved in to him. Mogi and I have already made up our minds on this. Aizawa, Matsuda, if you wish to continue working this case, you'll have to hand in your letter of resignation to the MPA, just as Mogi and I are going to do. If you continue to work with L, you'll be fired. That's all
Wow.
there is to it.
So then, Chief, you're gonna...
In a
Resign.
few hours, I'm no longer going to be your chief. However, we all have our own lives, so think it over carefully.
Especially if you've got a family to support.
Oh, that's going to be really difficult
If
for
you want
him.
my opinion, you'd be better off as police officers. I was alone when I started this case, and although I'm grateful to all of you for staying with me as long as you have, I know that I can do this by myself.
But when you first contacted us, you said that you would need the help of the police in order to solve this case.
That's because the police as an organization were still hoping to arrest Kira. They weren't
Okay.
bound to him. Besides, with all due respect, there's a big difference between the help of 2 or 3 civilians and the police as an organization. As you said, the police have made their position clear. They don't want to catch Kira, so let's just leave it at that.
All of us have risked our lives to catch Kira. Doesn't that give us the right to decide whether we stay here or return to the police force?
Good point. Then by all means, please make your decision.
But Chief, wait. If you quit your
Are
job
they
with
gonna
the
be
police
paid?
force, you'll be unemployed. Even if we do catch Kira,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do after that?
After that,
Is
I
Al
hadn't
going to
really
pay them
thought
a
of it,
salary
but
or
I
like...
suppose after we catch Kira, I'll have to dust off my resume.
I don't think it's such a difficult position for him to be in because
Is
he
there
has
any way
a
I could still
wife
keep
and
my
a
job
child.
help you in my spare time?
There isn't. If you remain a police officer, then please don't come back here.
But you know I won't leak any
I
information.
won't be sharing any of our information.
No.
You're free to pursue Kira on your own if you want to.
No one here is going to blame you for quitting.
Yeah, right. We all understand why you've got to do this.
But the Chief has a family too.
Our situations are completely different.
I said I was prepared to die if that's what it took to catch him, and I meant it. What kind of friend would I be to Ukita if I quit now? I became a detective so I could catch the bad guys, not
Oh,
run
this
away!
is so sad.
You specifically told me that if a task force member were to lose their job under any circumstances, I should make preparations to ensure that their family's financial future was secure. If you recall, a trust was set aside for that very purpose. I'm a little curious as to why you're withholding this information.
This is not the time or place, Watari.
Is it because he's wanting them to be fully behind their own conviction without money influencing their decision, which entirely makes sense. He doesn't want people who are only staying on the task force because they know that they are secure financially. He wants them to make that decision that they're so hell-bent on catching Kira that money is not something they're worried about. It's not something that's going to influence their decision. They're not going to be, I guess, in his way, easily dissuaded. It maybe is just a test of loyalty that he wants them to commit to this because they fully believe in the cause and they fully believe in catching Kira, and they're not being influenced by external factors like finances or money, that their moral conviction is so strong that nothing else matters. So obviously then saying that there's money, you don't have anything to worry about, is going to make his decision to quit the pleas 10 times easier.
I assume that was some kind of test to determine how committed I was to this task force.
It's not like that, Aizawa. Ryuzaki's just not the type to say things directly. You should know that by now.
Yeah, that's right.
No,
It was a test.
I was testing you. I wanted to see which one you would choose.
If I wasn't sure before, I am now.
But Aizawa...
He's going to quit.
Let's face it, I wasn't able to decide right away like you guys. I was leaning towards going back to the police. I've always hated Ryuzaki. I hate him and his way of doing things.
That's too bad, because I like you, Aizawa.
I also hate the way you've always got to have the last word. You insult me, now you say something like that? That's it, I'm out of here.
Thank you for everything.
What is he playing at?
After going over this again, I noticed something. All the deaths which are beneficial to Yotsuba are concentrated around the weekends.
Huh? On the weekends?
With the first few victims, the time of death appears to have been random. More
It's a really
recently, they all
weird
take place
pattern.
between Friday night and Saturday afternoon.
I'm amazed that you even noticed that, Chief.
Is it to make it look
Matsuda,
more
I
like
thought I told you to stop
accidental?
calling me Chief.
I'm sorry, but you'll always be the chief to me.
This is a really important clue, Dad. Nice work.
Well, you know, I can't let myself fall behind you and Ryuzaki. After all, the last thing I want is to be dead weight.
Dead weight?
This is all of the Yotsuba Group's employees. Here.
Thank you very much.
Jeez, there's so many.
300,000 people. How did he put this together so quickly? That's amazing, Mogi.
He's been incredibly efficient from the start.
Ryuzaki, please tell me, is there anything I can do to help with the investigation besides the manager thing?
That's really played on his mind that he's not pulling his weight enough around. Bless him, you can see like the wheels turning, like everybody's doing these really, really cool things. Like discovered a connection with Yatsuba Group. L is leading everything and has been pretty much the main source of any theories about Kira coming in. Light's dad is even starting to make really important clues on times of killings, when they're happening. And then you have Moshi, who is able to pull 3,000 employees from the Yatsoba group for them to go through in a very short space of time. And then Matsuda is just kind of like, well, I don't feel like I'm doing enough, but probably his role is just as important. Maybe his role is designed to try and get information from Misa because she will let her guard down.
So you really want to be useful?
Yes!
Then could you get me another cup of coffee? And for our guests over there as well.
Don't treat him this way.
Who are they?
Hold on a sec. Who let them in?
Those two are the newest members of the task force.
The name's Iber. I'm a con man. How's it going?
Wait,
I'm
what?
Letty, and I'm a thief by trade.
A con man and a thief.
That's right. Iber
Great
is a
introduction.
lifelong con man. His unparalleled social skills allow him to befriend and gain the trust of any target. We'll use him for infiltration. As for Weddy, she's a thief who specializes in cracking high-end security systems. As proof of that, she was able to enter the building without setting off a single
Damn.
alarm. However,
They're very
these two have never
glamorous
once been
looking.
caught, so it's unlikely they'll be killed by Kira. Think of them as professionals of the underworld.
I understand. To investigate Yotsuba, we're gonna need the help of people like this. Let's all do our part and make this happen, okay?
Yeah!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daddy?
Huh?
Daddy!
Yumi. Eriko.
What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work right now?
They just gave me some time off.
Huh? Is a time off a vacation, Daddy?
Yeah, that's right.
Yippee!
From now on, I can have a break every single week. Now I can go with you to the park. Maybe we can go to the zoo together. Or the amusement park.
What's wrong,
Oh, it's so sad.
Dad? Mommy, why is Daddy crying?
Oh, that's heart-wrenching. Oh, a part of me is wondering if he's crying because he feels like he's missed out on all these opportunities with his daughter because of how invested he's been in his search for Kira and the investigation with Elle, or if he's crying because maybe it's hit him that what he's invested so much time into and what he has come to value so highly is now over. That he walked out on something that had meaning to him in terms of providing a safe environment for his child to grow up in. It's just so incredibly sad. Elle is very, very clever getting those two underworld criminals to come in, because Yatsuba strikes me as a company that will have significant influence. And by significant influence means that they can throw the police off of their scent. They can maybe buy people's silence, that there might be an element of corruption beyond obviously them killing competitors for financial gain and to improve the company. It just kind of strikes me that they are hello. It's my cat. We adopted him on Tuesday. He's very needy. I've now lost my train of thought because of the cat. But it strikes me that there's like an element of corruption. If you see my eyes like dying around during this episode, it's because I can see the cat and I'm trying to make sure he's not getting into anything. We just adopted him on Tuesday, so he's fairly new to our house. He's only been here 2 days, so I'm just trying to make sure he's not getting into mischief and that he's okay. But yeah, that's why you probably see my eyes like darting around a bit this episode, because I've been a teeny tiny bit distracted by him and I can't lock him out the office, because if I lock him out the office he cries and it stresses him out, so it's not good for him. So I do apologize if this episode was a bit less put together than my previous episodes. By bringing in the two underworld figures, they're able to investigate Yatsuba Group without being caught, without raising suspicion the way that like an official police investigation would, and who knows, they may have such power that they could have just bought the police anyway, and then they couldn't have got anywhere in terms of investigating them. Who's to truly know? It could be that they would try and investigate them if they were still part of the police force, which they are now not. They may have just been completely thrown off into a different direction. They could have been bought out. So yeah, I think that's a very, very smart choice for him to use figures that won't raise suspicion. And there is something I want to bring to attention that I haven't previously talked about, but I think needs talking about. I maybe should have mentioned it in previous episodes, is the whole Light and Elle dynamic. Elle is just the same as Light. I think the more I watch, the more I see, and it becomes very evident that Elle is not really acting for justice. He's more acting to get one up. The concept of justice is now become secondary to winning, to beating Kira, to capturing Kira. It's no longer about morality. It's no longer about the legal system, because we have now seen that he's willing to completely disregard the legal system. What he did to Misa would be considered torture under the Human Rights Act. Also, the psychological torture that he put them both under, where he made them think that they were going to get executed and then made Light think that he was about to be killed by his father. That is incredibly extreme. And these extreme measures it's the boy. As a result of these extreme measures, what ends up happening is we start to see how alike Light and Elle truly are. They are the same person, but two different sides of the coin. We know from early episodes that Elle basically said that he is childish like Kira and he hates to lose, showing that competitive element to him. But we are now beginning to see more and more that Elle is unwilling to lose. And because of that, he is also willing to do whatever is necessary, pushing the boundaries of morality, pushing the boundaries of the law in order to get the truth and to get information, in the same way that Light also is willing to take out anyone who he believes to be a threat to him and his ultimate goal of becoming a god of the new world and killing criminals. I just find it really, really fascinating that we're seeing more of this dynamic play out between the two of them. But yeah, part of me feels sorry for Elle. He is really struggling to kind of grasp what is going on around him and the severity of the supernatural aspect of what's going on around him. And you kind of can't help but empathize a little bit because it must be hard being this world-renowned detective who has never not solved a case, and now you're up against something that is completely out of your depth. You can't quite fathom what is happening. But yeah, that physical fight took me by surprise. And I guess it was Light's frustration that after everything Elle has done to him, after everything he's been forced to go through, after being investigated by Elle, that Elle will just give up and be unmotivated because Light didn't turn out to be Kira. And I can see why he would be angry. I don't know if the Light that still remembered the Death Note would have maybe punched Elle. I don't think he would have. But it was just kind of fun to see Light actually stand up for himself and kind of put Elle in his place a little bit. Like, you know, you've got so hung up on me being Kira that you've kind of lost the point and the purpose of what we're actually supposed to be doing. Misa was really insufferable in this episode. I think she's more insufferable without the Death Note. With the Death Note, I found her quite tolerable, but without the Death Note, she's very whiny, and I guess that's because she's a teenage girl, but I don't know. It's just there's been a shift in her personality, a shift in her dynamic, and I don't hate her as a character. I just think she's become a lot less likable in this episode. Just the way she's depicted, the way she's written. She's very selfish. She's very, you know, whiny. Everything so has to be about her. She almost acts like a child rather than like a young woman. And I think that's where kind of my annoyance comes in. It kind of feels like the writer doesn't know what to do with her or how to write her. I think that's why I'm struggling with this episode, is because it's very evident that they're not quite sure how to depict Misa. She was a lot more likable in the previous episodes when she had the Death Note, and now she's lost her memories. It's very, I don't know, there's just the way she behaved in this episode kind of made me cringe a lot. Yeah, she probably does have self-indulgent tendencies. We have seen those in terms of like her jealousy. When we've seen her interact with people prior, including Elle, she was very likable. She was very engaging. She was very happy. She was very, you know, she was willing to speak to everybody, even when Light was there. And now this just seems like a complete switch. And again, it could be because she no longer has the Death Note, but it just seems very inconsistent with the character that's been written so far. That's just my opinion. You can disagree with my opinion. That's perfectly fine. There was something about the way she was written in this episode that I just felt was very inconsistent with the Misa we've been shown so far. And I just don't know if there's been a shift in the writing in terms of the writer doesn't know how to depict her and doesn't quite know how to write her. All the men are written incredibly well. They're very dynamic, they're very interesting, and the women tend to be more secondarily written. I'm not sure if the writer is male or female, but I'm leaning to the fact that it could be a male writer, because it can be difficult to write female characters from a male perspective, just as it can be difficult for women to write about male characters from a female perspective. So, you know, I'm not bashing the writer. There was just something about the way her character was written in this episode that I was just kind of like, this doesn't feel like the Misa we've been shown so far. This feels off, and it doesn't feel in line with the trajectory that we've been shown, especially because Light is still what we expect of him. He still behaves in the way that we expect of him. Am I going slightly mad? Can somebody confirm in the comments if the animation has slightly changed? I feel like the way that these characters have been drawn in the last couple of episodes looks kind of different to the way they were drawn at the beginning of Death Note. But I don't know if that's just my mind playing tricks on me, but it kind of looks like they've been redrawn slightly. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, I think that's all I have to say for episode 18. It was just kind of setting the path for them investigating Yatsuba, that they're now going to be at odds with the police, which I can see coming into the story quite a bit, because now they're no longer working for the police. They are, again, no longer bound essentially by the laws of policing, but at the same time, the police may then turn on them as acting out of place, acting out of turn, and that could cause some friction. But I do think there's going to be friction then between the police and the Kira task force that is now separate, because they are now investigating in a way that potentially is going to clash with the police and their investigations or their process of elimination. Who knows? I guess we'll see as the episodes go on. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next time, bye!